Oh no, not again.
As we grow older, so do our heroes. We have lost a lot of talented people over the last year or so, and many of them died way before their time. John Hurt appeared in the very first Alien movie, starred as Winston in 1984, and my personal favorite, as John Merrick in The Elephant Man, which was directed by the brilliant David Lynch. I wanted to do a small tribute build, but all I had in my stash was a knockoff copy of the Alien Queen Chestburster from the film Alien 3. But I thought, what the heck, this one's for you, Sir John. So, without any further ado, let's get cracking. Hey guys, nice to see you again. Oh Han, I've got some great news for you. Ben, your son, is coming around for a quick visit. Ben!
I will finish what you started.
Nice try, kid, but I think you just brought a knife to a gunfight.
Use the Force, Luke.
Whoa, you guys are pretty nasty, but that's one way of taking out the trash. This is the box I received from Thailand about a year ago. It's of the Queen Alien Chestburster from the movie Alien, and I think it's just a knockoff of the Halcyon model, to be honest. They were nice enough to mark it as a gift, which means that I didn't have to pay any import fees on it. Let's have a look and see what the inside looks like. Oh, pretty much crammed with resin parts. Okay, these instructions look like they're about the 1000th time that they've been recopied. Again, you can barely see anything here, but anyway, we'll figure it out. Shouldn't be too difficult. It does have quite a few parts to it, a lot more than a person would think. But yeah, we'll just figure out, because there are parts that need to be trimmed off and everything, and we'll see as we go along. That's the instructions. They're quite interesting. Make sure all the parts are included in the box and follow instructions carefully. Cut away the waste section. Use Sai super glue in gluing the pieces in place. Fill any pits or seams with modless putty. I think like a nice plastic putty will be the best there. Clean the surface by scrubbing the kit with a scrubbing pad or toothbrush. That should have actually been number 1. Anyway, if there are any twists or bends in the pieces, that sounds freaking scary. Dip them in hot water, take it out and put them back into shape, then dip them in cool water. Okay, makes sense. And if the kit does not stand, use hairdryer to straighten it out, then fill it with a plaster. Okay. Alright. So once it's built and it doesn't stand, use a hairdryer on it and fill it with plaster. Makes a lot of sense. Anyway, always laugh at these Taiwanese instructions, but I think if I had to do instructions in Taiwanese myself, I don't think I'd fare even half as well as what these guys do, doing them in English. Okay, let's have a look at the pots. Well, you can see there's, I don't know if this is like mold error, if it's supposed to be like this. But anyway, it does. If it is an error, it does add a lot of detail to it, so which is nice. Yeah, probably not the crispest mold, but a lot of nice detail though on it. So, yeah, and I can see the tail is pretty long on this one. It's a 1:1 scale. So yeah, that's one long tail. This. Now what I was thinking of doing is putting a brass rod into it and curling it around like almost a circular way. It's going to help to balance the model as well. Okay, this would be the back. Well, these parts that look like eyes are obviously where the legs and arms go into. You can see there's the forearms, there's the bigger forearms and the two little forearms. This is the main body. And of course here's the head. Oh well, part of the head anyway. Yeah, see that section there where the teeth go and everything is a little bit space. Okay, let's have a look at these parts. Good look there, you can see it's pretty much a bit of guesswork, to be honest. Okay, here we go, here's the teeth. You see they've got like the inner set of teeth and then the outer set of teeth. That looks pretty good. I wonder if a person can get it to come out a bit. We'll have a look and see once we've got the model going. I think with the vinyl you can pretty much shape it any way you want to. This is a lower jaw by the looks of it. Yeah. So there we go. I managed to kind of like find two of everything, and everything looks like they are opposites, and I think we'll figure out how it goes from here. Actually the legs don't seem to be too buckled, and then the plastic is actually, or the resin is fairly solid. A lot more solid than the vinyl kit that I did of the Terminator. So it should be fairly easy to work with. Okay, the tail's going to be interesting. I think that's going to be the most interesting part of the build. But yeah, I think we're going to go to the kitchen now and let's give these guys a good scrub. There we go. Got them soaking in the water, no soap added yet. We're going to use a bit of normal dishwashing liquid. We just want to get the oils and things from the releasing agents off. So very little. The water's actually just tepid, it's not even warm, it's just like barely warm to the touch. We don't want to cause any strange shapes here. And I just take a nail brush, but I brush very gently just to get into those little crevices and everything. Make sure we get rid of all the releasing agent. Just very gentle strokes, nothing serious. We don't want to add any more surface detail than there already is. And we try and follow the grain, the detail.
Cleaning the parts, I gave them a final rinse to remove any traces of dishwashing liquid. It was then that I noticed that some of the pieces had markings on them. When I looked a little closer, I noticed that almost every part had an L or an R stamped onto it, some only partially, but it was enough for me to figure out which parts were intended for the left and right sides of the alien figurine. I let everything dry and then checked each part for helpful markings. Enough of them had an L or an R on them to enable me to sort them out into 2 sections. Once the parts were laid out and I was satisfied that I had them in the correct order, I packed all the left-hand parts into one bag and all the right-hand parts into another bag so that I would not mix them up later. The first order of business was the tail. I cut off the excess of each section of the tail. And sanded it down to get a good fit between parts. Unfortunately, some parts were deformed due to shipping and storage and needed to be bent back in shape using hot water. I filled the sink with water straight from the water heater, and it was very hot to the touch, but not quite scalding. Originally, I wanted to use a brass tube to support the tail, but the tubing I had was not nearly rigid enough. Instead, I opted for 2 sections of aluminium rod, which were fairly light but strong enough to allow the tail to stay in shape once I molded the tail sections around the metal. I placed the first 2 tail sections in the hot water and allowed them to heat up until they were pliable, almost like a soft plastic. I slipped the first tail section over the aluminium rod and slipped the second section over the rod from the other side. I immediately ran cold water over these while I held them in place, and they kept their shape fairly well once cooled down. I did the same with the 2 larger tail sections, which did not fit together quite as nicely and needed a bit of manipulation in order to shape them up a little better. I was fairly happy with the result, even though the last 2 segments of the tail section were not as cooperative as the first 2 and would need quite a bit of filling work in order to look good. Next, I cut out the sections where the legs would be attached. I noticed that one end of each limb had a kind of joint which needed to slip into a socket of some sort. By cutting out the circular sections on the figure's body, one can provide an insertion point for these joints. I used a sharp X-Acto blade to carefully cut out the circles where indicated. When it came to the limbs, I was careful to check where the joint was before trimming away the excess. One should try not to trim everything at once, but rather leave a little leeway and then gently work towards the line which demarcates the waist portion. Likewise, I trimmed the excess of the second piece which makes up the hind leg, and test fitted the parts until I was happy that they would fit together easily. I added a generous amount of cyanoacrylate glue to one of the edges and held the 2 surfaces together while I sprayed some zip kicker onto the join in order to set it instantly. I used a gel type CA glue which could double as a filler. It worked great because I could shape it while it was still wet, and as soon as I had molded it into the way I wanted it, I could hit it with some zip kicker to lock it into place permanently. Unfortunately, the zip kicker turned the glue into a greenish yellow color and left a bit of an oily residue, which meant that I would need to give the model another quick wash with soap before applying the base coat. Test fitting the edges gave me an idea of the size of the final model, but also allowed me to do a final check that all of the legs are the proper ones, and that I hadn't accidentally mixed up a right limb among the left ones. I softened the part of the model where the joint of the hind leg was to be inserted. I used a hairdryer very carefully on its warmest setting and stopped to check the resin every 15 seconds or so. The plastic around the edge of the hole needed to be almost rubbery and needed to bend easily to the touch. Once the plastic seemed pliable enough, I inserted the hind leg and moved it about to make sure it was in properly. I did the same with the front limbs, being careful not to heat up the plastic too much with a hairdryer, as it could melt and deform the figurine if things became too hot. I repeated the whole process on the other side until everything was in place. You'll notice I had not attached the hands and toes to the limbs yet. I wanted to do this right at the end of the model build, in case I needed to adjust them for balance or mere aesthetics. That's how far I am for now. In the next video, we'll finish putting the model together and start adding our primer and first hints of color to this ugly little monster. So long, and thanks for watching.